What if I told you that most big fights in marriage don't start big? They actually start small. It's a sharp tone here or a cold shoulder there, an eye roll from across the room, a comment that stings and gets brushed off. On their own, these moments seem minor, but when they go unrepaired, they stack up. And that's when the explosion comes, the argument that feels like it came out of nowhere. I hear this all the time from men I coach. Small moments of losing their temper, being dismissive, walking out of the room, or getting reactive. They don't feel like a big deal and they just expect it to go away after a few hours or a day. But when those moments get ignored, they snowball and eventually turn into a fight that feels like it came out of nowhere. Here's what I told them and what I want to share with you. It's not the disconnection itself that does the most damage. It's the lack of repair. The small moments you clean up right away are the ones that keep the blow-ups from ever happening. And here's the good news. The same way those small disconnections lead to big distance, small repairs can lead to big connection. When you build the habit of repairing in the small moments, daily, weekly, consistently, you steady your marriage in a way that no single apology ever could. That's what this episode is about. I'm going to show you what a micro repair actually looks like in daily life, why most men skip them, and why that mistakes cost them connection, and how you can build micro repairs into your daily rhythm so they become second nature, and how to receive your wife's micro repairs because some days she'll be the one leading the way back to connection. Stick around because once you start practicing micro repairs in your marriage, you'll never see the small moments the same way again. Welcome to Better Husband, the podcast that helps you answer the question, how can I be a better husband? I'm Angelo, a men's marriage and relationship coach, and every week I bring you practical insights to help you strengthen your marriage and become the best husband you can be. Not long ago, I was sitting with a group of men in Better Husband Academy, and the theme that kept surfacing wasn't the big betrayals or major arguments. It was these small moments that at the time they thought didn't really matter. One man admitted he had snapped at his wife in frustration, wrote it off, and never circled back. A few days later, they were in a full-on fight, and he couldn't figure out how it escalated so quickly. Another shared how his wife had made a sharp comment, and instead of addressing it in his calm, grounded, adult way, he actually reacted and threw a sharp comment right back at her. And by that evening, things had escalated, and they were barely speaking. And I'll be honest with you, I've been guilty of the same thing in my own marriage. When things were really bad, I avoided repairs completely. I told myself the little arguments, the sharp words, the disagreements weren't big enough to deal with. So I just let them sit, hoping that they would fade on their own. But here's what I learned the hard way. When you skip repair, those moments don't disappear. They get buried. They add weight to the marriage, and eventually that weight shows up in some other way, through distance, through resentment, or in a fight that feels way bigger than the moment that sparked it. The shift for me came when I started practicing repairs on purpose. Over time, my gap from disconnection to repair got shorter. What used to take days eventually became hours, then minutes, and sometimes now, even in the very moment itself. I'll talk more about that later in this episode, but here's what I want you to hear right now. I'm not any different from you. I had to learn this. I had to practice it, and I've gotten better, which means you can too. That's where micro repairs come in. Small, intentional moments of ownership and reconnection that keep little cuts from becoming big wounds. And when you start to see them that way, you realize you don't have to wait for the blow up to practice repair. You can practice it every single day. Now, when I say micro repair, here's what I mean. It's a small act of ownership and reconnection after a moment of disconnection. Not a big sit-down conversation, not a dramatic apology, just a simple way of saying, I see where I slipped and I care enough to close the gap. Think about these examples. You catch yourself snapping back with a sharp tone, and later you pause and say, I didn't like the way I spoke to you earlier. That was on me. I'm sorry. Or you realize you shut down in the middle of a conversation. You circle back and say, I checked out before. I want to hear what you were saying. Or you notice she's still carrying the weight of something you brushed off, and you step back in with, hey, I know I dismissed what you said earlier. That wasn't fair. Tell me again. I want to get it this time. That's a micro repair. It's a course correction, a way of steadying the ship before the waves gets too big. Now, if you've listened to past episodes, you've probably heard me talk about the cycle of harmony, disharmony, and repair. Every relationship moves through it. There's connection, that's harmony. Then there's rupture, that's disharmony. And then there's a step back into each other. That's the repair. When the fracture is deep, when there's been a serious blow up or a breach of trust, you need the full repair process. I've done whole episodes walking through that because big repairs take time, courage, and real work. But when the fracture is small, when it's just a sharp tone, a cold shoulder, or dismissive comment, a micro repair may be all that's needed. A quick, simple act of ownership in the moment that stops disharmony from growing and brings you back into connection. And here's the part most men need to hear. The point of a micro repair isn't to get her to admit her part. It's not a trade. It's not, I'll own this if you own that. It's you cleaning up your side of the street, period. That's what leadership looks like in marriage. You can't control how she responds, and sometimes she won't respond right away. But your consistency is what builds safety and connection over time. And more often than not, it's what invites her to do her own repairs too. Most men don't practice micro repairs, not because they don't work, but because we tell ourselves stories that keep us from doing them. One of the big ones is minimization. Like, it wasn't that bad. She'll get over it. Why do we need to make a big deal out of it? We downplay the impact of those small moments, so we convince ourselves there's nothing to repair. But the truth is that that's an old survival move. Maybe growing up, you learned not to sweat the small stuff because nobody around you cared about the small stuff. So you shrug things off now too. But in marriage, what feels small to you may feel big to her. Another is defensiveness. If I admit fault in the little things, she'll never admit hers. That's another survival strategy. A lot of men grew up in homes where admitting fault meant getting blamed for everything. So they learned to fight back or hold back. But in marriage, defensiveness keeps you locked in a stalemate. If both of you are waiting for the other to go first, the repair never comes. And then there's pride. If I circle back, it'll look like weakness, like I'm crawling back, begging for forgiveness. I hear this from men all the time, and I get it. For a lot of us, showing vulnerability once meant getting mocked or dismissed or taken advantage of, so we learn to protect ourselves by never backing down. That might have kept you safe back then, but doesn't build connection now. Here's what I'm trying to say. Those strategies might have worked in the past, but they're sabotaging your marriage today. Avoidance, defensiveness, pride, they all block repair. A micro repair isn't weakness and it isn't groveling, it's leadership. It's saying this marriage matters too much to leave these small cuts wide open. That's the shift most men need to make. Repair isn't about being right or wrong, it's about being relational. And the sooner you get comfortable with small, steady repairs, the stronger your marriage becomes. So how do you actually build micro repairs into your daily life? Well, you won't suddenly get good at micro repairs just because you heard me talk about them. You need a rhythm, a practice that makes it second nature. One of the best ways to start is with a simple daily ritual. At the end of the day, just ask yourself one question. Did I do or say anything today that created distance? If the answer is yes, repair it before the day ends. Don't wait until the next fight. Don't tell yourself she'll get over it. Step back in and own it. It can be simple as, hey, I realized I brushed you off earlier and that wasn't fair. I want to try that again. Now, here's something I challenge the men I coach with. Track the time between disconnection and repair. For a lot of guys, it starts out as days. You stew on it, she stews on it, and eventually it blows up. Or eventually, maybe you try and make a repair. But what if you shorten that window? If it usually takes you days, aim to repair within hours. If you can do it within hours, aim for minutes. And once you can do it in minutes, you start practicing repairs in real time. That's the progression. That's how you build the muscle. Some men set up a nightly check-in with their wife, a 5-minute conversation before bed where they ask each other, hey, did I say or do anything today that landed wrong with you? It's not about creating drama, it's about creating safety. Because when repair becomes normal, disconnection loses its power. Here are a few other ways you can make this practice real. Use small bids for connection. A hand on her shoulder after tension, a quick, hey, I'm with you after you've gone quiet. Sometimes a micro repair is just a physical reminder that you're still there. Also, keep it clean and simple. You don't have to over-explain. You don't have to justify. Just own it, reconnect, move forward. Also, do it without an agenda. This part matters. This isn't about getting her to admit her part or for her to apologize or repair to you. It's not to earn a pat on the back. You're not keeping score. You're being a part of a relational team. And when you lead with micro repairs, the tension doesn't have time to harden into resentment. You create a rhythm where disconnection shows up, but it never gets to run the show. Now, here's a part that a lot of men overlook or just have trouble accepting, because it's not just about making the repairs, it's also being able to receive them. Because there will be days when you're at your best and she's the one who slips. Maybe she snaps, maybe she withdraws, maybe she says something she regrets. And when she circles back with a small repair, the question is, can you let it land? A lot of men don't. They hold on to resentment. They think it's not good enough. She should have said more. She should have done it differently. And in doing that, they reject the very thing they say they want, reconnection. Some days you'll lead the repair. Some days she will. And if you can meet her micro repair with openness, even if it's imperfect, you build safety both ways. You show her that repair is possible, that she can come back and be received. And here's how you practice receiving. First, you pause. When she makes the repair, resist the urge to add critique or to judge it, whether it was good enough or whether she did it right. Just pause and then take a breath. Notice if you have any defensiveness rising up, if you have any other expectations that don't get met, and then choose to let it go. And finally, say thank you. Because even if her repair isn't worded the way you wanted, you get to acknowledge the effort. Think about it like catching a pass. If you only accept a perfect throw, you'll drop half the balls that come your way. The point isn't perfection. The point is staying in the game together. That's how marriages get steadier over time, because you've built a rhythm of repairing and receiving. And when both of you can do that, even on the hard days, you're building a stronger marriage. I want to be really clear about something. The cost of skipping micro repairs is high. When you let little moments slide, you're teaching your marriage something risky. That disconnection is normal. That cold shoulders, sharp tones, and dismissive looks don't matter. And over time, that shapes the entire atmosphere of your home. Think about it like a small leak in a pipe. First, it's just a drip. You can ignore it for days, even weeks, and it doesn't look like much is happening. But behind the wall, damage is building. By the time the wall caves in, you're not dealing with a drip anymore. You're dealing with rot. That's what happens in your marriage. Those sharp words, those nights of silence, all those unrepaired moments don't disappear. They build on each other and it compounds. And I've seen it play out with the men that I work with. One guy described years of brushing off his wife's bids for connection, her comments, her invitations, her frustrations. He never circled back, never repaired. And by the time he realized how serious the distance had gotten, she wasn't just frustrated. She was totally checked out. Repair was still possible, but it was an uphill work because the trust had eroded drip by drip. Most marriages don't collapse in one catastrophic event. They collapse under the weight of 1,000 small, unrepaired disconnections. That's why micro repairs matter so much. They're not just about cleaning up the little stuff. They're about protecting your marriage from the slow erosion that happens when nobody takes responsibility. And if you've got kids at home, this is even bigger, because when you normalize disconnection, they see it. They learn it and they carry it into their own relationships. So don't tell yourself it's not that big of a deal. It is. Every micro repair is a chance to protect the foundation of your marriage, one moment at a time. So here's how you can start practicing micro repairs this week. I want to take a quick break to tell you that I have a brand new workshop available and it's totally free. If you've been listening to this podcast and you're ready to go deeper, I want you to check out my training, The 3 Secrets to Becoming a Better Husband Without Endless Therapy, Hating the Process, or Pretending to Be Someone You're Not. Inside, I walk you through 3 key shifts that changed everything for me in my marriage and for the men who have used this to lead more connected, intimate, and grounded relationships. You can watch it now at betterhusbandsecrets.com, and like I said, it's totally free. It's the clearest breakdown I've ever shared of what actually changes a marriage from the inside out. So if you're ready to really do this work, go to betterhusbandsecrets.com or click the link in the show notes. Now, back to the show. So here's how you can start practicing micro repairs this week. First, do a daily check-in. At the end of each day, just ask yourself, did I do or say anything that created distance? If the answer is yes, choose to make a small repair before bed. Number 2, shorten your repair time. Track how long it usually takes for you to circle back. If it's days, aim for hours. If it's hours, aim for minutes. The goal is eventually to repair in real time, but start by just closing the gap. Number 3, make one physical bid for connection. A touch on the arm, reaching for her hand, a hug, sitting closer on the couch. These small gestures can repair as powerfully as words. And number 4, work on receiving her repairs. If and when she circles back, don't grade the quality of her apology. let it land, say thank you, accept it, step back into connection. If you do those 4 things for just 1 week, you'll feel the atmosphere in your marriage start to change. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few questions you can sit with. And these aren't right or wrong answers. They're just about noticing your patterns so you can start shifting them. 1, where do I most often create small disconnections without repairing them? 2, what story or excuse do I use that keeps me from repairing sooner? 3, how open am I when my wife tries to repair with me? Do I let it land or do I hold back? And 4, what would it look like if I made repair a daily leadership habit instead of an occasional one? Take a few minutes this week and reflect on those questions, because the more honest you are with yourself, the easier it becomes to lead your marriage in a new direction. Here's what I want you to walk away with from this episode. Most men think repair is about big apologies after big fights, but the strongest marriages are built on small, daily repairs. Little course correction that keep the disconnection from turning into distance. You don't need to wait for the blow up. You don't need to wait for her to go first. You can lead, one micro repair at a time. That's what steadies your marriage, and that's what makes you a better husband. Now, if you want to learn more about how you can be a better husband in your marriage, I want to invite you to check out my free workshop called The 3 Secrets to Becoming a Better Husband. In it, I break down the core relational skills that most men were never taught and how learning them can completely change the way you show up in your marriage. If you ever thought, I know I need to do something, but I don't know what, this is your next step. You can watch it free at betterhusbandsecrets.com or click the link in the show notes. Thank you for listening to Better Husband. I'm proud of you for showing up and doing this work. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. I'm Angelo Santiago, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, I have a quick request. If you've ever gotten any value from the show and you want the show to continue to grow, to access bigger and more knowledgeable guests, and to keep providing you with more ways that you can be a better husband in your marriage, simply leave a rating and a review if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a few seconds, and those reviews go a long way in attracting more experts and bigger guests to the show. So if you're feeling up to it, as a favor to me, I'd love to see a rating and a review from you. Thank you so much for being a listener and all your support.